Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the Burnham Project on Substack. You can get Burnham podcasts, you can read my blogs and all sorts of cool stuff. It can even be sent right into your inbox. You can also watch us on Rumble and YouTube. We like Rumble better, but you can also watch us on YouTube. You can also find Burnham Podcast anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, click the little bells, the Rumble button, whatever the service has to offer. Click it, do that, follow us, tell people about us. Thank you very much. Burnham Podcast has a new advertising partner, introducing doggybagtreats.com. Tail wagging delights for your furry friends. They've got all types of collars and leashes. They've got all natural treats, things like minnows, chicken hearts, freeze-dried beef loin. That may not sound good to you, but your dog's gonna love it. They've got all natural baked goods, things for fresh breath. They've got peanut butter, banana oat, pumpkin, cheddar bacon, and other assorted treats. They've got pet care items like paw fume, oat soap, and paw balm. You can also make wholesale orders. Burnham Podcast listeners can get a discount by entering the code Burnham01 at checkout. Now back to the show. So we can all think of that one teacher that had a significant impact on our lives. They got to know us, they invested in our character, and they helped mold us and shape us into who we are today. There's a lot of those people running around in Northwest Georgia because they benefited from their time in class with Jacob Travis. That's who we're talking to in this episode. Welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. But here we are, as promised, the Jacob Travis, the famous and talented and best looking among the Travis men. We talked about that earlier.
Not much of a competition.
I mean, somebody's got to do it though, right?
Yep.
I mean, Josh might hear this. You got to stand up for yourself. This is your chance.
We look exactly the same the older we get.
The older you get, you look more like your dad. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff, though. Milt's a solid guy. It's okay to look like him.
Yeah, well, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Plus, we don't have another choice, do we?
I guess not.
It's kind of how it works.
Maybe a big bushy beard and a hat all the time. I don't know.
That's the only option I have is growing a beard out.
Yeah. But who are you? Why do people know you? The people that do know you.
Well, I mean, you got to. I'm a high school basketball coach. Is that what you're looking
that's
for?
That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell people that in Sunday school class, and they just, we know you're a coach. So hard to not be a coach. Like you get a new first name when you become a coach.
Right.
So people, when you're trying to remember their names, they have an advantage. They just say, "Hey, coach."
Hey, coach. I remember driving your basketball team to North Georgia for camp there, and you and your dad and your brother were hanging out at the score table there in the convocation center, and I was with, what's the guy's name that was the head coach at the time?
Chris Faulkner.
I'm sitting next to him, and I was like, hey, watch this. And I go, hey, Coach Travis. And all three of you goons turned around at the same time. I'm like,
We used to say it's like, being in the mafia, people in the family would say, if we went to the beach, which we went back this summer for the first time in years, they would say, what are y'all talking about out there? You get down the water a few feet, and then you start talking about basketball and all the things that go
cutting
with
off
basketball.
The baseline and the 1-3-1.
Yeah, but if you did it this way, if you stay down on the shooter in the corner, it could change, backside rotation, and all of a sudden, we've lost everybody else, right?
So this is a real thing that happened?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like today, if I called Dad, if he called me, it happens. So, yeah. I don't know what other people talk about.
Well, I mean, my brother's the same way, though, Drew. Like, Drew knows. We have to call Drew and be like, hey, you checked the mileage in your car lately? Might be time to change your oil. And he lives in Nebraska, Like, football. How do we stop this team from returning kickoffs on us? And
we have limited. Coaches definitely have a limited. Now, you'll meet some guys that have some other skill sets.
Yeah.
We all kind of have probably things we really like. But
right.
I've been told more than once I need to get a hobby, and I'm like, well,
time for a hobby, right?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a need for one.
I mean, football and basketball, I guess baseball to an extent, are essentially year-round now,
Baseball's
right?
year-round, yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But this is the life, right? Was there ever going to be anything else as Milt Travis's son? Were you ever going to do anything else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even to my senior year of college, my wife was there. We were engaged. I was applying to seminary and going to be in ministry and interned at one point with a youth minister. And I even interviewed for a job before my senior year thinking I wasn't coaching.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought I wasn't coaching. But I don't think ministers put people on the line. And, we don't do a whole lot of that anymore anyway. But Coaching was something I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Didn't know it at the time. You
Yeah.
you fight it for sure.
You do. But there are people though that, and I've said this about a very few people in my life, that there are people who are really good at what they do, or even great, and then there are others who were born for it. Mm-hmm. I think you probably fall into that category.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna go ahead and give you a compliment and make it awkward.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
7 minutes into the
I know
episode.
for sure I was born.
Yeah.
But coaching's a funny profession. I think most guys who coach at the high school level, probably even some middle school guys, it's about once a year, sometimes once a day, you can look at your spouse and say, this is it. This is the last one. And my dad's wisdom on that one was you never make a decision in the middle of a season.
Yeah.
Because seasons are funny. You want it to end.
Yeah.
Even if you're winning, you're making a deep run, you can't keep up that pace as a person living like go to bed at 9, 10, and then you're waking up at 6. It's on your mind when you fall asleep. It's on your mind when you wake up. It's pretty intense. So you can't fit. I don't know how guys at the high level in college do it. I think the good ones probably find a way.
They've only got a coach though, right? Like you have to teach a class.
Yeah. You only work as a pastor on Sunday.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. No, they're wide open to a point that teaching class is almost a way for me to have something else.
Yeah.
History is one of my hobbies. It's one of the things I love. So
that's cool though. I mean, it works out well that you're a history teacher on top of being a basketball coach.
It does work out well.
But it's, I don't know, something you do all the time, something that is who you are. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think a lot of people don't understand, and you would never be allowed to say this, so you're welcome. You'll get fired, right? If things don't go well. If you're have a couple of unsuccessful basketball seasons, you get fired from your job as a history teacher. I don't know in what universe that's fair, but that's coaching.
It's comical too. There's no severance pay in a high school basketball coaching. I always get tickled by the they fire a basketball coach, and I've known a lot of friends. And there's two kinds of coaches: those who have been fired and those who haven't been fired yet.
I said that at my brother's wedding at the speech.
It's a reality, and I'm one of the few lucky guys that hasn't been fired yet.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like when you leave other jobs, that wasn't a firing, but that was basically similar.
Right.
I felt that way before, that I needed to improve. But, the point is being a coach is a continual growth thing. And then sometimes they just decide you're not the right fit. Yeah. I've seen really good coaches in the last few years be told that they weren't supposed to be coaching at that school by administration, from pressure from parents. And I don't think, to be fair to administrators today, I don't think that's going to stop.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not.
The ability to call on the telephone and get in the ear of a principal or a board member, and that's everywhere. Those are hard jobs.
Yeah.
So let me say that.
That's tough. But it's, if it makes you feel any better, it's not just you, it's the baseball coach too, and little Johnny doesn't get to play. It's got to be the coach's fault because little Johnny's an all-star. Or not, and then you go, well, I can put little Johnny in the game, or we can win. Like, which one would you? But that's the dichotomy though of coaching.
Yeah, and then the hardest thing to do is to make sure all of the guys on your team have a voice and they have a crucial role to play. That's the hardest part of coaching.
This is what separates you from all the rest of these meatheads. Is that you say stuff like, "Go ahead, I'm sorry I interrupted you."
That's something I said. It's not something I always pull off.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter how many times you say that. I mean, some guys are stuck on the bench, or some girls are stuck on the bench,
right?
And they want to be on the court, and that is a hard spot to be in as a player. And as a coach, you have to explain, I'm glad you want to be out there.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't want to kid on the team that didn't want to be on the floor.
Right. And I have to explain to parents, I'm glad you want your kid out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality. And that's politics at its grassroots level.
Yeah.
What people want versus what's happening for the group.
Right.
And that's kind of a leadership deal too. You have to lead in those moments. You have to do what's best for everybody else. So, man, I've seen that my whole life in coaching, growing up in a coach's home. There's no way around it.
Yeah, no, it just is.
And the worst part is when people call you and berate you, and you think, "Hey, don't you know? I've already thought of this. You might be right. I know.
I've already kicked myself for this same thing."
Yeah, I've never left a season and thought I did that all right. That was perfect.
Yeah,
it's just not how it works. So
yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe God's getting you ready for life after basketball. There's always a pastor job, and what you just said over the last minute and a half, you could replace coach with pastor, and it would be the exact same thing, in so many ways.
I think the funny thing about that is it's not funny, ha ha. It's awkward, ha ha, because I've got a lot of friends in it. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
I worry about pastors. Like, I worry about them.
Man.
How do you keep that job up?
Yeah.
Because now people are just calling and blaming me, but in the church, I don't know why in the church there's so little grace for each
Right,
other.
of all places.
It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And then we just straight up blame God in the church.
Yeah.
God told me that the color of the carpet, that good old fashioned thing.
The color of the carpet, the temperature in the room.
Yeah.
That's tough. I get hit up. I haven't, since we started this church, I haven't. When I was a deacon, it was the worst. The thermostat. I got more calls about the thermostat in the church.
It was too cold in there?
It was too cold, or it was too hot, and sometimes it was both of those things at the same time from different people. And
Music's too loud?
Yeah, music's been too loud. Music's been not loud enough.
That guy can't sing. That guy can sing. He should be singing more.
We should get him up there, and I can sing better than. Okay, but I always tell people, when they say, "I want you to do this on your podcast," I'm like, "I want you to start your own podcast," but that's what we've done with the church.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll just start my own. That's totally why I started my church, but it's not at all. It's not.
I have a sneaky suspicion you felt a calling. That's why you started your church.
I did, man. This is not. I never would have done this. I wouldn't have sought this out and been like, it'd be great if I was a pastor one day. But God has better plans than we do.
Now you were steadfast in it, because I asked you for years, man, go get your teacher hat on. And you were working at the school, and you're like, nope.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this guy could be a great teacher. He could go. Why are you kind of sitting in a holding pattern, And you were like, nope, this is not what I'm doing forever.
Yeah, and I didn't know what or when. Well, I knew something. I didn't know what or when, but
no, you did it for quite a while.
Yeah, I did. I did it for longer than I should have. But that's But it wasn't bad. I was talking to Jonathan Duvall about you remember Jonathan Duvall?
I do.
Okay. Remember his face and where he sat in the room? Okay. So he's going to listen to this because he knows you're going to be on tonight.
I don't remember exactly where he sat, but I remember Jonathan.
I don't remember where he's at either, to be honest with you.
Jonathan
he was
Duvall.
like straight into the door where your desk are like facing. Anyway, what did Duvall say? Duvall says that you're one of the best teachers he ever had, and one of two classes, wouldn't say what the other one was, where he felt safe and comfortable all the time.
Really?
So,
all the time?
All the time.
He didn't fall asleep then, like Hayden did.
No. Duvall stayed awake because he wanted to hear what you were going to say next. He thought it was fun. He enjoyed, history and the conversation that you had in class, all that good stuff. And
it's funny. I don't know what I'm being prepared for either, but you have to. I taught 5 years of English.
Yeah.
And never would have done that. I bring that up in class all the time.
Yeah.
But I know teaching 5 years of English. Now, I now know that worser is incorrect, but when correctly used, is incredibly valuable when you're, the local vernacular. When you can engage it, you're successful. Yeah. But I learned to write a little bit better. Just in my 5 years of teaching something, it improved my ability to communicate in some other ways. So then I become a history teacher or a coach. A coach and teaching, anything like that's all connected. So it's sort of like, God, what are you doing with me next? But I know what I'm doing now has something to do with it.
Yeah.
He's training us.
Yeah.
If we're obedient. But, yeah, there are some days you wonder in the classroom, am I going to get out of these four walls?
Stuck here for life.
Yeah. But that's also the place you have the most joy at times, too. When I hear students' names, I'm trying to put Hayden today. I'm going, oh, my God. Man, I've been at Model for a while. So
No, but it does. It gets you ready for other thing. And that's what I was getting at when I got sidetracked with the Duval thing. I was talking to him about, he was asking if I was even still at Model. And I was like, I hadn't been there since August of 20. And he was like, well, what happened? Whatever. And I was like, well, I got to a point where I was kind of like, I knew I was done. Like, that was it. I'm done here. And you remember I quit and went to nothing. I went to a promise of one day getting the job that I have now. And so I didn't work it off like a year. And I did other like piddle things, but I didn't have like a job.
I remember.
But it was just time. It was there, right? So and then in that time, we started the church. So like, I look back now and I go, well, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. And it was a good thing I was obedient. Yeah. Right?
even after you made that first step and it didn't work like you thought it would.
Yeah.
That's the fascinating part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that feels like 10 years ago to me. And then it feels like yesterday at the same time.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And the COVID years have definitely put a change of routine and pattern have thrown me off.
It's been wild.
Yes, it has.
It's been, I don't know, there was like a divide in like the time, the history. There was like some, Yeah, right. There was like
no longer Columbian, post-Columbian, pre-Columbian. It's now before COVID and after COVID.
Yeah.
You know, people say during the COVID shutdown, and I'm like, man, I thought there was about 6 of those.
Right. It seemed like it.
That was a long 2 weeks.
It was.
Was it 2 months?
Two
2 months?
2 years to flatten the curve.
Yeah, it was long 2 months or whatever it was.
Yeah. No, but that was a weird divide. But that was that presented us the opportunity for me to step away from that job and do other things that I didn't know that we were going to do. So, it's getting ready all the time. So, keep your pastor card in your pocket there.
I don't have that card.
I'll bring you on as an associate at some point. It'd be great.
That's something I've heard too many times over the years. I go, oh, okay, guys, that's cool. Next thing, let's go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you're in ministry now.
Yeah.
Even as a public school teacher, and we've done episodes recently about homeschool and this and that, and I always make sure to let everybody know there are some fantastic teachers in public school, and I didn't leave because I thought Jacob Travis was going to indoctrinate my kids.
I tried.
I know you gave it your best shot, but it's a ministry, and it's important for people like you to still be there.
It's an interesting time in America, and I say America. I'm only in one place in America.
Yeah.
So let me back up. It's an interesting time, I think, for a lot of public school teachers. We hear about the mission field, and then we hear about how we should be doing it different in public education, and I'm sure there's some truth to that.
Right.
And then that all the public schools in the country, they are all very different.
Yeah.
Inside this region, they're all very different. Yeah. So when people kind of paint, same thing for private schools or same thing for homeschool situations. But the important thing is to be obedient. I don't know why I'm not on the mission field at the public high school down the road, but we'll put somebody on stage to say, hey, they're going to China, and they're on the mission field, and they are. And that's not an option when you're told to go.
Right.
But we're all on mission all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's a peculiar place as a Christian to have to kind of remind people nicely, I appreciate you. I don't know what your motive is to tear it down, but I'm on mission with you. We're on the same team here.
Yeah.
So that means we have to kind of not be as competitive at sometimes with our brothers and sisters on that. So there's a good book, not the good book. There's a good book, but it's based on the good book. Tim Keller's Every Good Endeavor. Had a basketball coach at Berry, Mitch Cole, refer it to me years ago. His son was at Model for a while, and it's very deep. If you've ever read anything Tim Keller, you got to chew.
How have I not read that? I've heard of that one before.
Yeah, and they're doing a Wednesday night study at our church, and I'm interested to see how that goes. Another guy in our life group read it with me, and he goes into, and it got me kind of my interest peaked because he goes into the idea that every good endeavor, we're all doing the work that we're called to do. I think about Paul as a tent maker, right, in Ephesus. You think about how many guys are bivocational, right? I mean, but we're all called in our jobs to be that person. Jesus came to earth, and instead of he's philosopher king, which is a Greek term. Yeah. Instead of being an emperor in the Roman Empire, he was a carpenter. And so, what message does that send to people? It gets me kind of tingly. I read that was one of the few things I didn't have to reread 6 times. All right, but Keller stuff is so solid and good. You just think, oh my
you
gosh,
need to. Yeah.
What a great point. And coaches have no doubt. We get some instant return. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes we have to apologize and say, wish I'd done it better when you were there, or I wish it had gone different,
See, you go against so many of these coaching stereotypes where it's just the meathead and I'm right all the time. And even when I realize I'm wrong, I'm never going to mention it again. So this kid doesn't know I was wrong.
Let me say it. I was wrong once, but I found out later I was right. Okay. I was mistaken. I think that's a Family Circle cartoon. My buddy Lance used to say it in class. Right. But I think a real coach, a good coach, is always trying to improve. And the only way you improve is you know what's wrong with you. So our players recently have given us feedback after the season. Man, it's been some good stuff. We sit down and meet with all of them. And sometimes you think the hardest meeting with a kid that didn't get what they wanted, playing time-wise, you think it's going to be just brutal. Yeah. And then they sit down and just give you exactly what you need to hear. Yeah. Sometimes it's not easy to hear, but most of the time it is what you need to improve the next group or to, that doesn't mean you're going to win, but that feedback is awesome.
Now, you guys, speaking of postseason and feedback and all, you guys had a pretty solid season last year, right?
We did. Yeah, Final Four. First time in school history, yeah.
Is it really? I was wondering how far the boys have gotten before.
We had knocked on that door some.
Yeah.
Even when I was in high school, I tried to explain to people we were closer than we thought. We lost we lost maybe by a basket to a team that lost in double overtime in the finals. Same thing happened to us this year. We lose by 10. We're down 1 with like 4 minutes left, and they end up losing in double overtime in the state championship game. You're always closer than you think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could have easily come in second place then, depending on what your draw was in the bracket,
man.
you know?
And we could have easily come in 32nd place.
Right, yeah.
In that same bracket, you know. So you kind of look at people like, man, don't take that for granted going on a run like that.
Yeah.
'Cause we've had some really, really good teams, a 2016 team, a 2015 team that ended, I think that's the year, with Davey Fisher and VJ Saxton's group. And we get the number 12 team ranked in the country in GAC in the second round.
Tough, man.
And we'd beaten Calhoun, who finished second in the state. So, man, you just don't take a Final Four. It's cool to put it on a T-shirt. And everybody wanted to put it on a T-shirt, not me. I'm like, let's get back to work. We don't, but you don't talk about a Final Four to get there. You go back to work and you try to improve the same way. So, you just never know. You can't take it for granted.
Yeah.
You could get bounced out. We barely won our region semifinal game in overtime.
Man, we lost my senior year at Rome. We lost in the Christmas tournament in the first round to Armurchie. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do. We played Armurchie the next game.
Holy smokes. Did you guys win? I didn't even go back and watch the rest of the tournament.
We won and then lost to Coosa in overtime.
See, I could have just not known that, I guess. I was assuming Armurchie was awesome and won it all. But there's no way we should have lost to them.
They were good.
Yeah, they were solid.
Yeah.
They were good. They had great coaching and, all that good stuff. They're the better team. As much as it pains me to ever lose to Armurchie in anything.
Basketball's painful. All they got to be is the better team one night.
That's it, yeah.
And guys who can't make, all of a sudden make.
Yeah.
We had a game this year, we won by 6 or 7, and I look back now and realize, one of the teams in our region that is rebuilding, and the coach is doing an excellent job of rebuilding. But we missed 31 three-pointers. We made 2. They just sat inside the lane, and we ended up winning by 6 or 7, and their coach was hilarious. He's like, we still couldn't win. Think about that. I'm like, but that's a night we couldn't make. They didn't miss. Yeah. And then later on, I look back and think, we were pretty good if we still won that game.
If you still pulled it out, yeah.
Yeah. But it's high schoolers, man. We're all humans. We go into games where we think we're supposed to win, and it's a hard thing.
Dangerous, right?
Very dangerous. Yeah. Most nerve-wracking games.
The ones that you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out, as a pastor, which ones I'm supposed to win.
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know either, man. But I don't know. I enjoyed my time as a coach. I wouldn't go back to it now. I wouldn't undo it either. Learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that I learned as a coach that benefit me now as a pastor. And one of the things, my brother made this point, your mission field kind of comes to you.
Yep.
Like you don't have to go out and you don't ask kids to try out for basketball. I mean, you do to some degree, but it's not like, please come to my school and try. It better not be, please come to my school and try out. But it's, your guys come to you. Your kids show up in your class.
Yeah.
And they do that at church to some degree, but there's a lot of recruiting going on.
Oh, yeah.
On our end of things. But, I thought it was cool the point that Drew made. He was like, your mission field comes to you. And you have them, for 3 or 4 years, and they move on, but new ones come in every year.
I had a student years ago who is now a teacher, had been in some ministry stuff, and is teaching up in the Chattanooga area. And I don't know if he remembers this, but he told me, he was part of our program too. He said, I'm going to go speak at a youth group, and we got 30 kids I'm going to be speaking to. And I said, that's funny. How many kids are in your first, second, and third period classes?
Oh.
He's like, I don't know. Well, do the math and tell me which group's bigger.
Yeah.
Which group do you get to impact every single day? So, and he didn't know what to say about that. I was like, well, it's different. I know.
Yeah.
But we're on the mission field in school, for sure. I think everybody is.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
You at the school, at the factory, or the road crew, or whatever it is, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
All the time. That scares people, though, I think. You think, well, I'm not a missionary. Well, like, I mean, you better be.
Well, you better be sent.
Yeah.
I know that's churchy talk, but it's the reality.
It is. But, I mean, it is reality. That's the Bible. We're commanded, right? It's the Great Commission. It's not the Great Recommendation or I wish you would,
Suggestion.
Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So we don't have the option.
Bells are not suggestions. Did I use that one on you, Hayden? You're probably on time.
Bells are not suggestions?
Yeah.
I
don't remember.
One of the best things, though, is I was in your class 2 years, maybe, where I was in their third block.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we were still on blocks then. But anyway, it was during lunch. And you'd be teaching up a storm, man, about the Epic of Gilgamesh or whatever.
I did that today.
And that bell rings, and you're gone. And your kid, every day, 180 times, like they never got used to it. They'd be like, and then they'd get up and run out too. Oh, it's lunchtime, we got to go.
I still race some kids down the stairs, especially on Thursday. It's chicken finger day.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, they don't know what to do with that, do they?
No, chicken finger day is, you might sneak out a couple seconds early on chicken finger day.
You know, you got to pattern your lessons on Thursday to make sure. Now they have a silent reading before it, so I can get a head start, or I can definitely be primed and ready. I'm not in mid-sentence.
Watching the hand tick down. 3, 2, dip out of there. But no, it was great.
School cafeteria. There's another place where there's a lot of kids and a lot of people to see. So I go there every day.
Yeah.
So hundreds, if not thousands, of people you can impact on a school campus.
When you think about how many kids over the course of 22 years now have you been in contact with? Like, can you even imagine?
Thousands. I did the math the other day. You have 180 days of teaching, 190 days total. I have more since I'm a coach in June. But we're talking 4 classes a day you might teach. You might teach 6 out of 7 or 3 out of 4. Just say you taught for 3 hours or you taught for 2 hours. We're talking thousands of hours, maybe 5,000, 10,000 hours. So you not only do you learn to create content and then put it out there to them, you learn how to read a room, you learn your audience, you learn how to deal with non-disruptive behaviors, you learn how to take distractions and make them part of what keeps everybody. You know, my life is a tangent. Is what I like to tell people.
Yeah.
You know, the tangents are great. If you get them off topic, you don't have to work on that with me.
Yeah, no, you were good at that though, when in behavior and absurdities that would happen in class, and you would, I don't know, you made such a thing out of it that it became humorous. Yeah. And everybody understood, like, okay, we had our laugh, and it's time to roll back around and get serious.
If you don't stop talking, I'm going to tell you to stop talking.
I'm going to tell you to stop talking. Right.
And if you do that again, I'll tell you again. You don't believe me? Just find out.
Right, find out.
You keep trying.
But a kid takes that and they go, okay, I get it. And it's not an argument.
It's disarming.
Right, yeah.
They find out I really don't have any power other than a piece of paper to write them up and send them to the office.
Right.
They knew that. I knew that. You know, and they have the emotional intelligence to realize he's making light of the fact that we're all in this together. Hey, man, just sit down. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, well, that's why we're stuck there just like they are, you know, as far as being in the classroom. And it's not like, you know, there's probably something else. I might want to be at home on the PlayStation too, you know, like maybe, just maybe, I'm stuck here with you. Mm-hmm. But stuck is not a good word, I guess. We're stuck in there.
That's a good word.
Okay.
Kids feel it. There are days, you're in class every day. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I guess especially like February, March, that grind stretch in the second semester. You know, we're in between spring break and the end of the year. Like that's the real grind.
Praying for a snow day somewhere in February.
In April.
Yeah, in April. It depends on that school calendar too.
Yeah.
It depends on your classes. Sometimes you just got a class full of knuckleheads, and that is something I've learned to enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, because when they're all quiet, it's a little bit of a, hey, you all are boring. I actually told a classroom that today. Y'all are boring. You're boring me to death.
Well, that's what you have this thing, right, in class where you teach the class as individuals. And I'm not even sure if what I'm saying is making sense, but like you still identify with every kid in the room. I've seen you go around the entire room and say something good about every kid in the class, and I'm thinking in a minute.
All lies.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm thinking in a minute he's going to forget one of them's names, so I'm just going to sit back and watch, and you'd be like, or forget what you were going to, have nothing good to say about a kid. But you always did. And you talk to the individual while you're relaying whatever awesome world history fact you had to put down that day. Yeah. But that's an important tool, man, for teachers or for anybody else.
There's a few kids that probably would disagree with that statement.
Maybe. But I mean, there's always that one guy, that is just, And, the Bible talks about as we're spreading the gospel, you get to a point and you have tried, and then you shake the dust off your sandals. And you don't ever want to think about a kid that way. But I mean, at the same time, you can't sacrifice the entire class for one kid or whatever. But
The classroom's an organism. I think, Hayden, we were talking about that. That's every group has a different feel.
Yeah.
I can't remember you because you've changed so much, but I start putting you in that class. I'm like, oh, yeah. Like I told you, I do that with kids all the time.
Yeah.
And it was 11 years ago, right? 12 years ago almost. So I stop and say, or maybe 10 years ago, I stop and say, oh, yeah. And that class had this knucklehead. And,
Yeah, well, that's what as soon as you figured him out, you were
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, and this one and that one. And,
yeah.
And you sat in the back, and she sat by the window. Yeah. And,
I think that is a change today, too. His group, I understood. Like, I understood how they thought, what they wanted. They were closer to us.
yeah.
Yeah, they all they wanted was to get tropical Skittles out of the vending machine in the middle of third block. Students today they still want the tropical Skittles, but they've changed a lot. The last 5 years has changed everybody.
Yeah.
The digital age has sped things up. COVID sped things up, and that's also part of being a teacher is how do you stay ahead of that? That's why I worry about pastors.
Yeah.
Because people are expecting, I don't know, expecting you to have the right answer on COVID. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're supposed to have seen the pandemic coming.
Yeah, I knew all about this. Well, that's where our church came from.
Yeah.
Right. We started meeting when nobody else was meeting, and then eventually just became a church. But that certainly wasn't ideal, and it wasn't like I've got all the answers. Come here with us. Like we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have I guess I've got a lesson plan every Sunday, but there was no roadmap for that.
I get to repeat a lot of lessons.
Yeah,
which
right.
helps. I don't think that's what y'all get to do. So
Not so much. It's all I've got pretty good notes to learn from.
yeah.
But I mean, you kind of got to reinvent things.
What's fascinating, you're teaching from what I think is the greatest history book of ancient literature, most accurately translated piece of ancient literature of all time. Of course, it's not even a close second.
Oh yeah.
Especially the New Testament with is it 5,800 or 6,000? Just depends on which preacher's hollering about it.
Right.
When you hear them. All those manuscripts, you know.
Yeah, a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah, which I have never read some of those.
I've read a couple, just the ancient Greek ones, and then it's tough. But like Sunday, we were in Matthew 12, and in most English translations, there's verse 46 and there's verse 48. There's just not a 47. Like the number's not even in there. Like you can't ignore the fact that there's no 47. So I'm like, well, how am I going to explain this? So I'm digging it up, right? And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. It's a story of how incomplete our language is.
Yeah.
Because they were saying something in the Greek that they couldn't stop saying, and we tried to make it fit into the English, and it just didn't. So we just skipped it because our words weren't good enough. But
that is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by the language barrier. It's the question of inerrancy. People will ask me that. You believe it's inerrant? I'll be like, yeah, but you're not.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
I'm not.
Yeah.
So we luckily we've got those things in the Bible, but when you're in a history class, I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's a cool subject, though. I mean, math. Like, God bless math teachers, but like, you get to teach what happened over the course of the world. Since the onset. This is how it was. And
ask kids this now, and they can recite it. How old is science? And kids oftentimes go, "Oh, it's as old as." I'm like, no. How old is science? I mean, we can go back to ancient Greeks and get ideas, even some Egyptian stuff, but we know what the Mesopotamians. You're talking about. We're in that unit right now. Yeah. We know what they figured out through observation that the number 6 was used in the clock. And how old is the actual subject of science? It's only 500 years old. I mean, we're going back to Galileo, right?
Okay,
really, Copernicus, as the kids call him.
Copernicus.
All right, Copernicus. Those paintings look like Lord Farquaad, but they like that's really where that study started. Mm-hmm. And then it's I think a great book is the guy who founded L'Abri. How then shall we live? How should we then live?
Yeah. How should we then live?
I can't remember his name all of a sudden. The book is, I cannot chew through it, so don't get me wrong. I have it on the shelf, bought it used at McKay's, and I thought I was going to get to it. I have not gotten to it.
Yeah.
But his idea that we have rushed off into a humanistic world, which we have in the last hundreds of years. And so we've kind of taken God out of the picture in a lot of different subject areas. So it's a real challenge if you're a public school teacher doing it right.
Yeah.
It's not my job to go in and try to proselytize kids and reach those kids and make them offend their parents, or I don't set foot in a school building to do that. That's not who I am. or my purpose in that moment. But at the same time, if I'm living my life the right way, if I'm plugged in, if I'm abiding, hopefully there's something different. Hopefully there's something that raises questions and that kind of thing. And usually you're not combative with the kids who disagree with you. Usually they're more intrigued by that. And their respect for you as a religious person and their religion. It's just great conversations.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask, how you draw the line between teacher and missionary. Yeah, because you can't stand up and preach a sermon. Like you just, you'll get fired.
Yeah.
God bless them. But at the same time, there is some of that element, and if you're doing it right, you'll hear people say, well, there's something, Coach Travis is different. There's something, I don't know what it is maybe, but there's something different. And I guess if you're doing things right, that's the kind of the result you get.
I have to believe that Jesus gives me the freedom, or God gives me the freedom to teach people how to think.
Yeah.
Right. We were doing that this weekend at our church. The love the Lord your God with all the Shema from Deuteronomy that's repeated by Jesus when the greatest commandment is asked. The scribe is curious, and he love the Lord your God with all your heart. Well, in Deuteronomy, there's no mind. Yeah. It's actually said in the book of Mark, and that we talked about that in life group yesterday morning. So I think, man, we're not, to be people of the faith, we shouldn't be intimidated by subject matter or information, or we should guide young people. But in a public school setting, you probably heard me say that back in the day. Hey, it's up to your parents to educate you on some of these things. Right. I'm not gonna step into that void, because in that moment they're gonna lose trust from me anyway. Yeah. So we're never not on mission, but you're also having to decide, okay, what can I and can I not say? You get closer to some kids. Some of their families are believing families, or maybe you go to church with them. But my First Amendment rights are not abridged because I'm a teacher. They're not limited. Sure. But you have to do it the right way. Yeah. Be professional. And at the same time, I walk up and down the street as Jacob Travis. I don't have to walk up down. People are still going to holler coach at me. Yeah. Right. But at the same time, I have to know that I have a right to believe what I believe. Right. Doesn't have to be a secret.
Man, that's good stuff.
Well, it is a battle we're in at some level as a culture. I understand that. Mm-hmm. We are also living in the greatest country in the world, and
we live in a pretty good spot in the country for this kind of thing too, because it's really not, there's some disagreement as far as our religious beliefs go, but we're not seeing like the level of hostility in small town Georgia that they see, I'm sure, in a lot of places.
No, but there are groups that are searching for it. They're looking online to try to find coaches who are too plugged into FCA. You need to know your laws there. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the First Amendment is about freedom of religion. So I'm one of those guys that's probably out there a little bit. They used to pray at football games on Friday nights. Yeah. And people now are offended. How come you took prayer out of schools? And my question is, when did you quit praying?
Well, right. Nobody took prayer out of school.
We went victim mode on that. Yeah. And I would say it this way: maybe you're living in part of Michigan where a lot of our Iraqi refugees are. Yeah. They're not going to pray on a Friday night ball game, are they?
Right. Yeah.
Where it's predominantly Muslim. How would you feel if you were, But we have Muslim students, and we have students who are Hindu or other religions, and they're, they're always very respectful because we're respectful of them. Yeah. I always think that Jesus was offensive at some level, but mainly I noticed it's when he went to the temple. Right? He offended the people of his own kind the most. So that's interesting.
Well, people are going to find their own offense when you tell somebody their religion's wrong and they're probably going to hell because of it. Like that's offensive, and that's offensive enough. Even if we feel like it comes from a place of love. Like, I love you enough to tell you that you'll go to hell without Jesus. Well, like, okay. They'll be offended. There's no reason to just be a jerk.
No.
The offense will take care of itself.
Well, at that point, it needs to be said, and I have friends who are Christians, and we disagree on some issues that are pivotal and political now, and ultimately what I say to them is, it doesn't matter what I think. Oh. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what we think. Yeah. It matters what we believe about what the Bible says. Yeah. And do we believe, this is the cliche, I'm a coach, I love cliches.
Do it. Put it on a shirt.
I don't believe it's in the Bible. I don't believe it's true because it's in the Bible. I believe it's in the Bible because it's true. Right?
There you go.
Yeah. And so kind of unpacking that belief system goes along with, is Jesus who he says he is in history? Right. And all those things kind of leads me back to that. I think we're going full circle here.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I talk in circles. Leads me back to the reality that I'm supposed to rest in Him on all these things. I'm supposed to be obedient to Him. And most of the time when I'm most concerned about politics, which is, I hate to break it to everybody, that's most people's religion now. It is, Karl Marx, opiate for the masses.
Oh, man.
Now religion's opiate for the masses. It tends to be politics for people now.
Yeah.
And they bank their happiness in life on who wins. And it's like, look, guys, Georgia won 2 national championships. All right, is that not good enough for y'all?
Braves got one a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm not a Georgia fan, but I'm looking around thinking there needs to be more national championship talk.
Oh, man.
But we've treated politics like that, zero-sum game, and then we've treated it like a religion. And I'm speaking from a place of a guy who's a high school basketball coach. Winning is an idol if you're not careful.
For 100%.
You put all those things in front of God. You do it on a daily basis sometimes, and we need to be plugging in to Him, and that is where I am often the weakest.
Yeah.
I would rather know stuff about God and then get to know God better because
it's tough. When you get to know God, though, like, I got to change as I'm getting to know God.
Yeah.
I don't get to do the things that I used to want to do, and it's not fun.
I don't like that either.
But I mean, we have to, right?
Yes.
Or because there's no neutrality in this. There's no middle ground. You can't be like, well, I go on Christmas and Easter, right? And that's enough. But
it's all right.
Yeah.
The idea is all. You with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. So that is a very passionate moment where you stop and say, okay.
Yeah.
Like that is who I've got to be all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part. And I got to tell some new believers this not long ago. They got baptized. And, of course, you get baptized now, and it's on Facebook, and it's everywhere, and everybody knows. I'm like, man, you can't go back now. Or all those things that people have been saying about you since you said, hey, I got saved, I'm getting baptized in a couple of weeks. All the things they said about you are going to be true when they said, oh, he's putting on a show. He's not, that ain't real. He's doing that for his girlfriend or for whatever. But once you've gone and been baptized and made it all public and lived that life for any period of time, you can't back up.
No.
You got to continue to live that life, and that's tough. That's the hard part. It's dying to self every day.
I think we can get real busy. I think in America we do that a lot. We get real busy. Like I said, I've never lived in another country, but from what I hear, we're busy.
Mm-hmm.
It was said to me a couple of years ago, you can't just live an existential life. At some point, you've got to get past all that and go deeper into who we are and the inner being, as it says in Ephesians. So, I think that's a real challenge. Is how do we consistently remember that we're living the kingdom?
Yeah,
like we're living it now. Someday the curtain will be torn back, and we'll all understand. But, man, if you think that way, it's pretty intimidating how much freedom I should have to live my life the right way. So,
right?
Yeah.
To live it the right way, of course. Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
I'm not always successful at that. So.
Yeah, I mean it's a struggle, but as long as we're in this meat vehicle, it's gonna be. Is that a new one for you?
Yeah.
What does Pyle call it? A meat sack? Is that what he says?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
meat sack, meat vehicle.
I've heard people say stuff
machine.
like that, but meat vehicle, meat sack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about myself about right now. So.
Yeah. I know you couldn't tell based on like how sore your knees might be right now or whatever, but like this thing is not perfect that we live in.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it.
But it's the fight, and it's till the day we die.
Mm-hmm.
I think, did I make the Billy Graham reference last week about when he was not being tempted anymore? So we'll do it again because there's people. Anyway, so Billy Graham, somebody asked him one time, when do you stop being tempted to look at the girl that walks by on the sidewalk or with whatever? And he was like, I'll let you know. So Billy Graham's 95, and they're like, we'll see. One day, maybe. But it's an ongoing thing, even if you're Billy Graham.
Yeah.
It just never stops.
Me too.
Yeah, right. But if it was easy, it wouldn't mean anything, right? I mean, you think about being a coach. If you just turn your dogs loose every Tuesday and Friday nights, and they just ran up 120 points, like that's easy. What fun is that if you just won all the time?
A lot of fun, actually, Danny. I don't know. I'm not sure how you want me to respond to that. I think that sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know any coaches that are disappointed to hear that.
Have you never played a Madden game or an NCAA 2K game?
Just dominate. I don't know. Drew mentioned that. He coached at Hutchinson out in Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
And they played in that spring league during the COVID year, and they ran the table and didn't have a competitive ball game all season long. And I was like, well, was that still fun? And he was like, we won a national championship.
It's a whole lot of
It
fun.
was awesome. It was fun.
I'm sure it gets less fun, and we've won a good bit in the last 11 years. Not every year, but almost. And every year it seems like the pressure to compete again, to win, and it's that old Frosty Westering. He wrote a book called The Big Time is Make the Big Time Where You Are. He was a small college football coach on the West Coast, and one of the things he talked about was a coin. And we treat everything we do in life as a win or a loss, right? And that coin really has three sides. It doesn't have two. It's got a third side. You've never seen Jeff Smith Goes to Washington, the classic?
I guess not.
It's a classic government film, black and white. Might have showed it to these guys. No, probably not. Y'all were juniors. Freshmen used to watch it. And the governor's flipping a coin. He's got to replace a senator who died. And the coin gets stuck on the side of a newspaper. And so he picks a guy who's on the newspaper. It hits the third side, Our secret in our, of any getting outside the win and loss pressure, even though they're going to be there, the anxiety, the stress is going to be there. Right. The secret's to live on the edge, to find out the edge of that coin is where you're, I always tell the kids I'm most dangerous as a coach when winning and losing is something I get free of. We can take a loss on the chin and say, we're going to get better. We're going to figure out who we are. Now, you can't say that in the last game.
Right.
Because, the seniors.
It's the last game.
The seniors are not going to do that. Hopefully, they're going to use the life lessons that we always talk about. But that's the most freedom I have as a coach is when I get really, really laser focused on the process.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have to learn. And this is a funny thing, I'm sure, in different businesses. But I have to learn the seasonal side of it. We got kids playing football right now. We've got kids not playing football right now. We had kids that played AAU in July. Some did, some didn't. But our goal is to be really good at the end of February into March.
Yeah.
So is there such a thing as doing too much right now? Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And in July, you've got to, you definitely – and it's so healthy for kids to go play other sports or be involved in other things. And
would you say that again to the –
Well, it's a hard time to do that too. And this is I'm going to go on a really wild tangent. I mean, how many times a day do you hear – you shouldn't focus on one sport. LeBron didn't. And I laugh and say, that's funny. LeBron's probably the best athlete in the world.
Right, yeah.
He could have played every sport.
Are we going to compare people to LeBron James? Yeah.
But there's a healthiness to it. If it's not a sport, it's be involved in another club. Make sure you're going to your church, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's part of coaching. That's seasonal. It's give and take. How do you take a breath? Knowing the difference in quitting and resting. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Because most coaches would quit right there in the middle of February if they could, right? And so you have to find a way to rest in the middle of that grind. Okay, on Sunday afternoons, I'm taking a nap. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you haven't read that book, it's incredible.
You got a reading list tonight. Are you going to keep up with these?
John Mark Comer wrote it. He's out of Portland. And then he basically, last time I heard him on a podcast, admitted that he hasn't lived up to it. Like Mondays were supposed to be a Sabbath, and he didn't have like 5 Mondays in a row because he was doing speaking engagements. And he got famous from the book, and you think, and that's why it's a battle.
Yeah,
Just finding that rest is a big deal. I don't know why that is.
There's just always something else for us to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go home and sit on my couch and my kids are wrecking the house. Like that's happening if I'm on the couch, So like we find something to do, and then they grow up a little bit. And now they got practice because these Yahoo coaches are on Wednesday night and they can't go to youth anyway. But there's always something to do, right? They graduate from one thing to another, and if there's nothing, we find something.
Yeah.
Because there's just it's the world that we live in. There's always something to do. If not, your wife can probably find something for you.
My wife's good at not doing too much.
Okay.
So, and that's a hard thing for people to understand unless they stop and reflect.
Yeah.
We all need to stop sometimes.
Yeah.
We all need to say no to some things. Everything looks like a good opportunity until you find yourself just so weary.
Yeah, right. You're just out of gas.
Weary.
Well, then you're not effective. when you're just exhausted.
No.
And you're trying to do 10 things and you're not good at any of them because you've worn yourself out.
Find out you're drinking 9 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah.
You don't know why your left eye is twitching at all times. Why you don't like anybody, why they don't like you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you find out we're not made for this. The stat that they talk about is 100 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution kicked in, really the second Industrial Revolution, we were sleeping an average of 11 hours a night.
What?
Yeah.
I haven't even slept all the way through a night since October of 2019.
Sleeping 11 hours a night. Now humans sleep, 7.5 or something. The light bulb.
Do we?
The light bulb is what changed it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you used to just come inside. You'd stop working when it got dark.
yeah.
You'd come inside and you light a candle and let it burn for a few minutes while you got ready and
Yeah.
you go to bed because it's dark. That's what you do. 11 hours of sleep. Tango, you got 11 hours of sleep at one time in your life.
In medieval times, they now think there's actually 11 hours. I've done it before, but it's only after a lock-in the night before. That kind of
That's
thing.
different.
Maybe
cheating,
in
isn't it?
high school I did.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I
In
don't
high
think
school.
I
That
ever
included first and second periods. He slept walk.
That's with naps.
Yeah.
But that's medieval times, y'all. You can look it up. They now think people went to bed and woke up sometimes at midnight.
The two sleep thing.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I work with a guy that does that, and he swears by it.
Really?
He goes to bed at like 10, and then he wakes up at like 1:30 or 2 o'clock, and he's up for like half an hour, and he typically will read a little bit, and then he goes back to bed, and then he gets up at 6 or 7.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is he a minstrel? Does he do any?
He's the CEO of the organization I work for.
Nice.
Yeah.
So maybe it does work. I was curious if he had a middle-aged job.
Man, he travels all over and does speaking engagements and all kinds of stuff. And so, Mark Hancock, Trail Life USA, hit him up.
I wonder if he limits his caffeine intake.
He's got to.
Yeah.
Got to. You would never sleep otherwise. I mean, like, I'll be 45 next month, and if I have a cup of coffee after 2 p.m.,
Me too.
I'm up until midnight. I'm done, or after even.
Now I just do about 10 push-ups.
Is that the deal?
Okay, I got to wake up for about an hour here. Let's do about 10 push-ups. That's all I can do before things start popping anyway.
Oh, man.
Let's just get the blood flowing and wake up.
Yeah. Pyle messages me today, and he's like, hey, next time we're on, we got to do some smelling salts ahead of the episode. I don't think that's the answer for much of anything.
Smelling salts?
Smelling salt. The little things you break, the ammonia things.
Oh, yeah.
You stick them under your nose, like when you've been knocked out or whatever.
So you're going to be up here just all over the mic.
Wide
and
open. Yeah. I
that's-
don't want any part of that.
That's me third period. So I fast in the mornings. I eat supper usually really late. So I started fasting in the mornings. It's helped me control weight a little bit. I'll run in the morning. And then I'll usually have a coffee from Lumina, which is strong.
Yeah.
It's strong. And or I'll have a coffee from Swift and Finch. Or I'll just have another cup of coffee. And in third period, there have been times where I'm teaching and I'm thinking, I'm about to explode. What's wrong with me? Why am I so... I haven't eaten any food in 10 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm only on
And it's
coffee at
only
that
caffeine.
point.
Man, you brought some chocolate-covered espresso raisins,
Yes.
or what were they?
They were...
Was it raisins?
What were they called? No, they were coffee grinds. They were coffee beans.
Yeah.
Chocolate-covered coffee beans from the racetrack gas station.
That was horrible. I was with you. You gave me a pack one time, and like I ate one and it was good. So then I had another one, and then I just was like subconsciously just eating these things. And I was in the corner waiting on the bell.
I walked by the classroom, and he gave me like the end of Breakfast Club kind of fist bump.
Yeah.
He's in the back of the classroom with some students. He's like, yeah. I was like,
wide
yeah.
open.
I hope Danny's okay. Maybe I should have limited
man.
him to half a bag. By the way, they don't sell those anymore. There was probably a lawsuit
Probably
that ended
killed
it.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North Dakota teacher dies on racetrack gas station.
Right.
Chocolate-covered coffee beans.
They're so good, though. Man, they were good.
Yeah, they were.
They were probably too good.
I started getting hot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was that moment where you realize I'm standing up teaching, blood's already
Sweating.
flowing. And then all of a sudden you get hot and you think, I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, yeah, I just chugged some coffee. Yeah. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I don't know. We got to find fuel for all the stuff we're trying to do. Because I got, I'll do this now, and I've been at work all day, and I got this podcast, and then I'll go home and wrestle the kids for 2 hours trying to get them to go to sleep, and it just, you got to have the gas to do all this stuff.
Another book for the list here that most people probably didn't read. They give teachers books every year. We're going to do this book study. Luckily, we have such good bosses. We work for the best right now.
Great folks.
Even though you left them. But there's a book called Emotional Poverty, and it talked about, it didn't, to me, the title didn't match what I actually got out of this little book. It's a little book, so I'm flipping through it.
Yeah.
And it talks about your different stages in life. And I'm thinking about you with younger kids. My kids are 17 this week.
I'm grandparent age, man, having my own kids still.
But you think about how much we unfairly expect out of ourselves when our kids are little. We have them play in, every kind of ball team there is. Then we expect to be, like incredibly involved at church.
Yeah.
We go above and beyond, and people can access you now. This is what scares me for pastors. This is what scares me for everybody. Coaches we're terrible. People can now access us on our cell phones at all times.
Yeah.
So I'll get text messages about playing time or text messages about anything. Yeah. And you want people to communicate with you, but it creates a bit of a flood of information. And I need to be better about communicating up front. But that is one of the things that when I say empty, I am empty at the end of a season. Yeah. Empty.
Yeah.
And I want to ask a couple of people when they complain via text, hey, would you have called my house if this was a landline and risked my daughter answering and talk to me face to face about this? If you would have, then don't text me, call me.
Yeah.
If
it's really important.
Yeah. But we do this to each other. I do it to people too.
Yeah.
And I'm the world's, my dad's like this too. Now we're connectors. We like conversations.
Yeah.
We'll play ping pong. We'll hit it back to you till you're tired of playing.
Right.
And I know that sometimes people got to tap out. Sometimes people can't keep it going. But I'll say this about my dad is I've noticed that he has basically, and this is what the coaching fraternity does well, especially when guys get a little vulnerable. When they need help, they'll call him.
There you go.
Every coach thinks he's brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
Until he gets deep into coaching and he finds out, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about offense. I don't know anything about defense. I don't know anything about coaching. I don't know about kids. Then you start raising your family and you just find yourself exhausted. So then you call a guy like Dad. I've been lucky to be mentored by him.
Oh, man.
Other people. I had a guy in Daresville his name was Kevin Bussey. He still teaches at Cass. Solid Christian guy. Didn't coach anything. We had Kentucky basketball in common, but was solid theologically. He still teaches a Sunday school class. And Kevin kind of mentored me. He didn't realize he was. We went to games and stuff together, and I've told him recently, you mentored me. You were the first guy to say, hey, man, this cell phone and laptop thing is not good for kids.
Hey.
And I thought he was being old curmudgeon.
Right.
Being strict. And I've limited my kids' intake of a lot of those things. And most parents today have realized this.
You have to. Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, those parents didn't know.
That's when you get tangos off the chain over here now because he wasn't properly supervised as a child.
Well, we didn't know. Yeah. I mean, I always explain to people, giving a cell phone to me as a 16-year-old would have been the equivalent of Mom giving me a fast internet in my bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah, the same thing.
We had to have getting on the internet at Model High School's media center in 1997.
Yeah.
It took you 30 minutes to get to the front page, but it was literally the same thing as having probably the nuclear codes. I mean, it was like, this is a dangerous place to be. And today we've normalized it, but you know what? It's still a dangerous place to be.
It is. And I remember I got my first cell phone when I was 26. So like, that's kind of where we were in the timeline. It
was a brick, wasn't it?
It wasn't a brick, but it was like the next thing after the brick. I was even one of the last people to have a cell phone.
You held out, man.
I did for a long time.
That doesn't surprise me, by the way.
Yeah.
18 years ago, by the way.
18 years ago?
Something like that.
When I was 26. Holy smokes.
Wow.
But, so my frontal cortex, had finished developing the year before, and then I had a phone, and then I still ran up $200 worth of text message charges one time. but it wasn't, unlimited internet in the palm of my hand, and if it was, I might have been able to handle it by then.
Yeah.
Our 12-year-old can't handle that.
No.
Our 16-year-old can't handle that.
Can't handle that. People our age are the worst on Facebook.
Right.
I mean, they go to Facebook, and it's like, my gosh, y'all.
Facebook and Instacracker. I hadn't heard, man.
InstaChat.
I
emailed it out today, Danny. You guys go home if you want to do P90 Xbox. If you don't, we got stuff for you to do here. It's just a level of reality that we we create another reality.
Yeah.
And we're battling that at there's a great counselor guy over in the Athens area, lives in Jefferson, Doug Duke. Look him up for all you people who are interested in this. Does some work with FCA. It's how I've gotten to know him. And we'll come here and do some mindset stuff, clinic stuff. But he basically talked about how he's now having to deal with athletes, sometimes big-time college athletes, high school athletes. And I think every coach in America went, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Some kids would rather be good on Instagram and get the likes and get the offers than actually be good on the team.
Yeah.
And that's not a, if you could keep that appearance up and that person could succeed, and adults are the same way.
Yeah. We don't actually have to perform as long as everybody thinks we're performing or we're
Right.
cool or we're whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get off you. If you remember me saying that in class. I haven't done that a lot yet this year. I'll have to show off tomorrow with my Insta chat. TikTok toes.
TikTok. There wasn't a TikTok when I was.
Y'all are in the corner making those TikTok toes
TikTok toes.
with your best friend. I still walk through those all the time. I make sure I walk through them.
You got to cover them periodically just so they know, that Coach Travis is hip to the vernacular.
Yeah. What I love to see is how they dance in those Crocs. It's kind of like it's a trend. It's a trendy thing. Crocs and slides. I'm like, y'all.
Man, I mean,
I get the comfort level, but
yeah. I don't know if those shoes are for like public consumption though. They might have been just for around the lake or whatever. Wear them in public.
are we supposed to be talking about something specific in this deal?
We're not. I mean,
Okay.
we're doing it. This is what it is.
Okay.
There's a million podcasts you can go on and argue Calvinism versus Arminianism or versus a millennial, whatever. We're not doing that. I have people on here that I'm interested in talking to, and I'm not going to have to fight with, and that I think the listener may be interested in. That's it. Those are my criteria.
Well, that's good because I don't know enough about any of those subjects. I know enough about those now to know I don't know.
Right. We're to that point in life, man. We've made it.
Oh,
right.
man.
We know how much we don't know.
Is that cresting the hill? Is that what that is?
I'm afraid so.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's a nice pet to have because I know, I don't know that. And I can pay that guy to come over here and take care of it or, whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
I got this.
He's got a Tango finds me when I lost an episode of the show. I recorded an episode with a guy and then I just couldn't find it. Just gone. I went to put it on social media. Disappeared. He had messaged me before and was like, hey, let's get together sometime and talk about your podcast. And then so I'd lose an episode and he messages me and he's like, hey, I'll be there Monday night. I was like, okay, all right. Come on now. Yeah.
See, that's let's go back to teaching and coaching. This is probably the most powerful thing you do well. And Tango?
Tango.
Hayden's
Yeah,
Tango
that's what we call him on air.
Yeah. Is that your code name? Are there people looking for you?
Maybe.
It's like a fake name on Facebook.
There you go.
But I mean, at the end of the day, we're not created for. That's why Jesus says right after all that in Mark, love your neighbor as yourself. Somebody you know, or you should know.
Yeah.
Somebody that, and then he goes on to explain to us that our neighbor is the Samaritan. But like you should live your life as you go, and take Jesus with you. And I mean, my biggest conviction is I am oftentimes looking over my right or left shoulder, going, "Hey, you back there? Hope you're following me, Jesus."
What about that one set of footprints in the sand, right?
Oh yeah. I don't know how many times I read that, saw that posted on somebody's wall. Sometimes I have to do some hurrying back to get back there. But
I don't know. We're all guilty of that, though. It's not just you, so don't feel bad about that. It's
But that's what I loved about you is you were living your life where you were. You weren't even when you knew it wasn't your permanent place. I'm supposed to do something.
Yeah.
We still talked about our faith. We figured out who we were.
Right.
You still took us to Milledgeville to a team camp one time. Stayed in a hotel. You remember doing that?
Yeah.
Drove the bus.
Fun.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Yeah. Those were fun things.
Let me tell you a secret about staying in a hotel room by myself. I went through a time in my life when I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I was dirt poor, and I forget why even, but I got to stay in a hotel one night for free. I never had anything nice. So I was like, my mom and dad took care of us. It wasn't like I was like poor. This is on my own. When I was an adult, I was broke. So I was like, I'm jumping on this bed. And I jumped on the bed.
On that trip with us?
And I do that, matter of fact. every time for a long time. I got too old to do it eventually, but like for a while there, I was jumping on the beds in hotels because I was like, I remember where I came from. And
let's change
now I've
this
got a place
podcast to Confessions of Danny
yeah,
Burnham.
right. I also didn't read these book studies we had to do in school. I didn't read Grit. I don't remember what year that. You remember the Grit book?
You know why I chose that book?
You chose that book?
You know why?
Why?
I'd already read it.
Did it ever get to the point? We kept reading. Like we went through like several chapters, and we finally were like, "This is dumb. She's never gonna get to the point."
No, the points. She makes the point on her TED Talk. So just watch the TED Talk.
So we could have just watched the TED Talk instead of.
Oh, the cool stuff comes out of that book is the word competere, the Latin word for compete, which is strive together. Seahawks have that on the wall. Her study of West Point. That's cool.
That part was cool. That was we got.
You
that
would think
far,
it would be like this, just drill sergeant kind of culture. And
Yeah.
It's just this highly supportive culture of high achievers, and you're thinking, well, that makes me feel better about the country in which I live, right?
Yeah.
You do realize, and I liked it when I read it. Now, I have it on my phone in random places, but the books like that those are nonfiction books. The pieces of them are better than the whole sometimes.
Well, right, and the West Point study, I got something out of that. But I remember, you're supposed to read this and meet with your department and talk about it, whatever, which was almost impossible in special ed.
Yeah.
Because somebody was always sticking a fork in a light socket somewhere. But we would do this. We'd read the chapter of the book, and then we'd meet it during lunch one day. And we did that for a few chapters, and I'm telling on all y'all, it was Allison Odom and Tracy Owens.
Yeah.
Julie O'Neill was in there.
Usual suspects.
Right.
No surprise here.
So eventually we're like, hey, is anybody asking y'all about this? Like, we're getting together and reading this book, and we're supposed to talk about it. And Allison was like, no, nobody's talking to me. And so we quit doing it. But
Ain't that the secret about books? I have a lot of books I've read half of.
I've read 1.5 million books.
Yeah. Or, just the beginning. You don't have to finish a book. You only live once. Somebody your age said in class that time, YOLO. I was like, oh, okay.
YOLO.
Y'all use that as an excuse to be stupid. And I was like, don't you mean YOLO, be smart because you only live once? Not, you only live once. No, you only live once.
Yeah, but it almost turned into a thing where, like, he's got "Don't Die" tattooed on his arm. You only live once, so, like, go for it.
Right.
But the attitude became, like, if you do that, it might not be for much longer. Yeah, like whatever it is.
So that's what happened to your generation there, Tango.
Yeah.
Y'all had to follow up YOLO with "Don't Die."
That's
Absolutely. That's the rule. That's the only rule. Just
it.
don't die.
Once he started paying for his own insurance is about the time that
Yeah, that sets in. It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you get a job and you pay your own bills.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can still be who you want to be inside of that without being discouraged, I think that's pretty good.
Well, you're like a really cool point in life where you are an adult now. You're still young enough to do some kid stuff, but you're not like dumb enough to do most of that stuff anymore.
I've hit that point where I'm done with the dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that hurts now.
Yeah.
That hurts now.
Now, right? That's how it goes.
I
That
don't
hurts
bounce anymore.
Now we know his next tattoo. That hurts now.
That hurts now. Oh, good stuff. Tell me, where are we at on time, man?
An hour 10.
Hour 10. Wow. Man, I've been nailing that, hadn't I?
Yeah.
Hour 10 just about every week.
Time flies.
Don't it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap it up pretty soon, but what kind of beans do you want to spill on Milt Travis? Well, I'm going to have him on, so he's going to come back and correct a bunch of the things that you said. You already know that.
Oh, I haven't spilled any beans on
Okay.
him. Talking about a guy that coached, same school I'm at for 17 years, 20 years, 17 years, maybe head coach, 20 years.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer at Model. Coached, other stops like Buford and assistant at North Gwinnett or head coach at Stevens County. Took a winless team at Stevens County to a 18-win team the next year, something like that.
Holy smokes.
He's got a lot of those stories. That's his most fun in coaching.
Yeah.
But I know him as Pawpaw now too, and that's
okay.
That's some of the more intriguing stuff.
Yeah.
He calls the kids and says, "I got ice cream at the house." The things that
That
you
means
didn't.
bring them over.
Yeah,
right?
the things you. Oh no, they're old enough to go now.
Okay.
So we're somewhere else. They'll get in the car and go. And I'm thinking,
Is Noah driving?
oh, he's 17 this week.
Oh, no, he stopped. No,
yeah,
he's not.
yeah. So I got to see him be grandpa. He coaches my son and some of our kids a lot. And
Yeah.
that's a blessing too. He's old school, so sometimes he knows that.
He's
but
still Milt Travis, right?
yeah, kids. I think players, man, they know in the end that is definitely what they needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when I didn't feel like it I
Right.
wanted it. So
Right.
spilling the beans on him. He's a guy that, had kids young, went back to school, raised us on First Street in First Street or in the village on First Street. But there's people that helped us grow up, man.
Yeah.
Helped raise us that I still come in contact with, and that's a humbling thing too, to realize Mom and Dad had God put people in their lives.
Yeah.
And there's no other way to explain some things. I know
Right.
that's Southern to say He did.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. And so that's been fascinating to watch and to realize that's happening in our lives too. There's people that, the dad and mom are, I got to say dad and mom. Same reason I get to coach, because Kristen Travis.
Right.
I married a great coach's wife.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Is my dad's story too. So
Yeah. Good stuff.
yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, we'll jump off right there.
We've been on here an hour and 10 minutes.
Right?
Yeah,
People
it's
are like,
awesome.
every time somebody comes on, they're like, oh, can you talk for an hour? I promise you can.
Yeah.
Something you're passionate about, at least.
I got nervous, man. I was thinking we're not talking about enough stuff, and then I realized you know how to do this.
We got it, man.
Yeah.
I'm a professional, right? Yeah. All right, we're gone. God bless you guys. Love you. See you next time. Thank you for watching Burnham Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.